webinar. In an effort to make things easier for our participants, we're also offering you the ability to listen to our webinar right through the speakers on your computer. So if you haven't called in via the phone and you're listening through your computer, just make sure the volume control on your computer is unmuted so you can hear the audio. Also, if you have any questions along the way, please type your question into the chat log section on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to get to all of your questions right away, but if we don't get to it, we'll be sure to answer all of the questions you may have at the end. And also, at a few points throughout the webinar, we'll pause to have a few discussions and questions either over the phone or through the questions that you're submitting to the chat log box on the right-hand side of your screen. So once again, good morning, everybody. My name is Amber Troop, and I'm the Director of Mentor Michigan, and we'll be hosting today's webinar with you. Today, we're going to be looking at the quality program standards, and as you know, there are 11 quality program standards for youth mentoring, and today we're going to briefly review standards 1 and 2, which address the definition of youth mentoring and also developing a recruitment plan. I want to begin with just a brief history of the quality program standards for youth mentoring. These standards were developed by the Mentor Michigan Providers Council, and this Providers Council provides expertise and ideas to Mentor Michigan as we implement our activities and our services that we provide. This council consists of up to 20 individuals that represent diverse mentoring programs, organizations, and collaboratives around the state, and that includes programs such as community-based programs, school-based programs, faith-based, higher ed institutions, local mentoring collaboratives, volunteer centers, national service programs, and the list goes on. We also ensure that these programs are geographically diverse, so we always try to have representation on the council from all parts of Michigan. The standards are not meant to certify or accredit mentoring programs. Rather, they're meant to be used as a planning and assessment framework that ultimately raises the bar for mentoring programs. And even the Providers Council members that wrote these standards would agree that they themselves do not meet all of the standards. What they do agree on and believe is that these are the elements that every program should be striving for. All of the standards are based on research and evidence-based practices, and then at the national level, there's something very similar to the standards, which are called the elements of effective practice. So there's a great basis for these standards. In addition to the standards, the Providers Council has also developed a self-assessment checklist, and the purpose of this checklist is to provide youth mentoring programs with a tool for self-assessment as programs work to continually improve their operations and services to the communities that they serve. Hopefully this checklist can provide benchmarks for progress. So programs should use this instrument to determine areas of potential improvement needed, and then also to identify those components of quality youth mentoring that are strengths of the organization. Both the quality program standards and the self-assessment checklist are available for you to download at the Mentor Michigan website, which is mentormichigan.org. So once again, in this session, we're going to review standards 1 and 2 of the quality program standards for youth mentoring, and we'll explore the definition of mentoring that is used by Mentor Michigan and discuss how programs can develop recruitment plans. So hopefully by the end of the discussion today, you should be able to begin to do the following things. First, identify how your program's definition of mentoring is the same as, and in some cases may be different from, the Mentor Michigan definition of the mentoring. You should be able to begin to create a list of volunteer opportunities within the organization that includes, but ultimately is not limited to, serving as a mentor. Understand the importance of creating and keeping the written position descriptions up to date for all of the volunteer opportunities within your organization. Identify potential sources of mentors and other volunteers in your communities. Begin to list some of the reasons why community members volunteer within your organization. And finally, hopefully help you to begin to identify recruiting and marketing methods that will help you reach potential volunteers in your communities. So now diving into Standard 1. This ultimately describes Mentor Michigan's definition of youth mentoring. So it states that the program defines mentoring as an ongoing, structured relationship with a trusted individual that's aimed at developing the competence of the potential mentee. And this should be consistent contact between the mentee and mentor. It should include certain amounts of meetings or frequency of meetings, match duration guidelines, and standards for group mentoring as well. And this definition gets even more specific based on the type of program that you operate. So we're going to continue to get a little deeper into that as well. So if you're a community-based mentoring program, this means that you should provide for consistent contact between mentors and mentees for a minimum of 1 calendar year. And these meetings must occur several times each month, ideally weekly, for a minimum of 4 hours per month. School-based programs should also provide for weekly contact between mentors and mentees that lasts for a minimum of 1 academic year, knowing that you can't quite have that full calendar year in a school-based setting. And if the program does group mentoring, the ratio of mentees to mentors should be no more than 4 mentees to 1 mentor, which includes a consistent relationship between 1 mentor and the same 4 mentees. So consistency is key. So ultimately, whether a youth mentoring program meets the Mentor Michigan definition of mentoring should be a fairly easy yes or no question. If the program fulfills that definition, it's a mentoring program. And if it doesn't, either because of the difference in ratio of mentees to mentors or the frequency of meetings or, say, the duration, the program is likely doing really great work with young people but does not fit that definition of a mentoring program. And, you know, we find sometimes that programs need to really carefully examine what they do. That is, are they mentoring programs, or are they other things like tutoring, after-school care, career prep programs? These are important questions to ask. Although most programs don't address all of the Mentor Michigan quality program standards for youth mentoring, the definition of mentoring is the critical standard for programs to meet. If the desire or intent is to be a mentoring program, the leaders of that program should focus on addressing these key components that we talk about in the definition of mentoring. So this definition is really critical to Mentor Michigan. This first standard defines the focus of Mentor Michigan. All of the services that are focused on, all of our services are focused on programs that meet this definition. Our definition of youth mentoring in Standard 1 really serves as the foundation upon which a mentoring program is built. And this foundation is really essential, and without it, it's really hard to build a formal youth mentoring program. So we mentioned in an earlier slide that all of this is based on research, and research shows that mentoring programs that have the best possible youth outcomes are when matches meet for at least 1 year and for an hour a week on average. Regular contact has also been indirectly linked to positive youth outcomes through its role in allowing for other kind of desirable practices to occur in the mentoring relationship. So, for example, regular meetings often lead to engagement in other beneficial activities, providing emotional and instrumental support, and a deeper integration of the adult into the youth social network, and really allows for a much deeper, closer relationship. The best youth outcomes come from matches that meet on a regular basis and last for a significant amount of time, and we can't emphasize that enough. So the definition of mentoring is really critical, and want to pause for a minute here to make sure we have addressed any questions you might have on the definition of youth mentoring. So if you have any questions, please type those into the box on the right-hand side of your screen at this time. Or go ahead and raise your hand, and we can unmute your phone and try and have you ask that question over the phone. We had a question that says they have a site-based program that's not at a school, but they want that to be a calendar year, and is that okay? Absolutely. Site-based programs we look at a little bit differently than school-based programs. Quite often, school-based programs are meeting within a school setting, oftentimes during a school day, so it's really hard for mentors to have access to that location or to those students, their mentees, when school is not in session. So that's why when we talk about school-based programs, we define that duration as an academic school year, knowing that our mentoring programs really can't operate during Christmas break, spring break, summer vacation, those sorts of things. But most of our site-based programs, many of them, do follow that full calendar year schedule. So those programs might be meeting at a YMCA, a community center, maybe a church, other locations throughout the community that are open year-round. All right, if there's no other questions, we're going to continue, but feel free to continue to ask questions as they come up. We're going to move on now and start to begin to look at Standard 2, Recruitment Plan. This discusses mentoring programs' recruitment plans, obviously. And most programs can count on usually a constant supply of potential mentees, but we'll really need to focus on the recruitment of potential mentors through a well-thought-out and a well-executed recruitment plan. Also, it's important to note that this is especially difficult to recruit male volunteers to volunteer as youth mentors, and this is an important fact to consider when developing your marketing and volunteer recruitment plans. So for more information on recruiting male mentors, check out the Men in Mentoring Toolkit on our website. You can also look to our website to find out when we're going to be doing webinars specifically on the Men in Mentoring Toolkit. You may have participated in some already, but we'll be repeating that in the future as well. So Standard 2 states that a program has a comprehensive recruitment plan for mentors and for mentees. And the program should also have a system for timely mentor and mentee follow-up and enrollment, and that should include some of the following things. So first of all, strategies that portray accurate expectations, eligibility, and benefits for both mentors and mentees. That there should be year-round marketing and public relations for your mentor recruitment. That may vary a little bit based on the type of program that you operate. That there should be targeted outreach for mentors and mentees based on your program's objectives and the needs of the participants. That you have clearly stated program goals and objectives. You have a written position description that clearly outlines the roles and responsibilities of those involved in your program. And that you have volunteer opportunities beyond mentoring available within your organization. So that could be utilizing volunteers to assist with special events with fundraising, with outreach. Maybe even they could help provide some office support, serve on special committees that you may have. The list could go on and on, but I think quite often we get so focused on our volunteer recruitment with regards to mentors that we forget that there could be other valuable roles that volunteers could play within your organization. So we're going to dive deeper now into the specific pieces that would make up a comprehensive recruitment plan. So recruiting potential volunteers for your program isn't just a one-time event, and you'll never really have enough volunteers, and if you do, that probably won't last for very long. You'll most always likely have challenges in identifying a pool of qualified potential volunteers and then convincing those potential volunteers to actually become volunteers for your organization. The group called Independent Sector reported in 2001, they did a report that was called Giving and Volunteering in the United States. They said that the best way to recruit volunteers is to ask them. And in this report, the independent sector also said that 50% of all people who volunteer do so because they were simply asked to volunteer. And I know that sounds really simple, but quite often we tend to do larger group recruitment events and miss the opportunity to do those one-on-one asks. We do have a question. Cody, we're going to unmute you for a moment. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, I wanted to know if for like this, I guess, I don't know if you're going to cover this, but the screening, is it the same for volunteers as it is for a mentor?
Well, the answer to that is yes and no, and we'll get deeper into that in a future webinar when we talk about screening and eligibility. But I would say it's going to vary because some of the systems that you have in place are based on the fact that your volunteers are going to be working one-on-one with youth, and so there's certain safety mechanisms you have to put in place in order to ensure that that creates a safe environment for your youth. But if you have an individual that is going to simply, maybe they have great connections in the corporate sector and they're going to make asks of businesses in your community to provide some funds to support your program. But they're not ever really going to have contact with the youth that you serve, you're probably not going to need to do the level of screening on them that you would do on those that are going to be working directly with the kids that you serve. So it's just going to vary based on the activities that you do, and then you know, depending on whether or not those other volunteer roles are going to provide the opportunity for those volunteers to interact with youth will make a big difference on the level of screening that you do. But that's a great question.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions right now? Okay. So looking now at using current volunteers, there's another study, Achieving Success Through Volunteers. It says individuals who are currently volunteering for an organization are the best recruiters of new volunteers. And these individuals have great credibility in the eyes of potential volunteers. So it's important to remember that current volunteers may also have the greatest picture of your organization's goals and the best way of persuading people to support these goals. So it's important to design recruiting strategies to involve existing volunteers in both the message, your messages, your design, and your delivery. So, you know, what better group to help you with recruitment than those that are already sold on what it is that you're doing. They're already invested in your program, they believe in it, and there were things that drew them to your program in a way that they can share with other potential volunteers. And potential volunteers have a different picture of a volunteer opportunity when it's coming from another volunteer. If I know that a friend or a family member or a colleague believes in an organization and has had a positive experience, I'm more likely to volunteer there than I am in an organization where I don't know anything about it and have never had any contact with it. So your volunteers are a gold mine for recruiting potential volunteers. And I know oftentimes our mentors make a big time commitment to our organization, and quite often we're reluctant to ask them to do anything more. But it's important not to let this resource go to waste, and they're obviously already, once again, sold on your program and are willing to tell the story of what's happening within your program to their friends and family and colleagues. And by simply providing them with some tools to serve as volunteer recruiters, they can make a huge impact. And they're already naturally talking about your program to their friends and family. When they talk about what it is that happened during their week, they'll quite often tell stories about you know, what they did with their mentor or their little, and have really great things to share. So it's important to remember to use those. Another great statistic is that there was a poll done by Mentor, which is the National Mentoring Partnership, and it said that 96% of existing mentors would recommend it to others. So again, that's another important stat that shows the value in using your current mentors as recruiters and asking them to share those experiences that they have and encourage others to become volunteers. So we want to share with you hopefully a few tips that are useful in recruiting mentors. And I know we're going through this relatively quickly, and we could spend a great deal of depth in each one of these areas, but feel free to ask questions along the way. But here are some tips for recruiting new mentors. So first of all, it's important to target and inform your audience. So you should be identifying internal and external target audiences. You don't know how to recruit somebody unless you know who you're trying to recruit. Craft a powerful message and key talking points. So you're very clear and concise what it is that you want to share about your program with a particular audience. That you send a packet of information and maybe an FAQ sheet that you could maybe use during mentoring month or other times, but create a packet of information that you can use for these potential volunteers. And some programs and communities are able to enlist maybe a celebrity spokesperson to tell their story. So maybe it's a reporter for your local newspaper or a DJ for your local radio station. Is there somebody that has a voice and is heard throughout your community that can help inform this potential volunteer pool that you're targeting? It's important to build community commitment to your program. So make presentations to local organizations. Maybe it's your local Rotary Club or Lions Club or church groups, so they understand what your program is trying to do. You can check your local media, editorial, and community calendars for the best time to publicize the information about your program. Quite often there's calendars and due dates and timelines in order to get your message out in local media venues. That you're telling the story. You need to publicize the stories and testimonials of your local mentors. Once again, this gets back to using your mentors and their experience, but most of the time your volunteers would be willing to give you a quote or a story about why they're engaged in your program. You could ask your local media for public service announcements and coverage during National Mentoring Month. And your individual programs don't have to create those from scratch. At Mentor Michigan, we have a variety of ready-made PSAs that you can use and distribute, and we can even assist in the distribution of those if you'd like. You can set up media interviews for print media, TV, and radio. Even local kind of cable access networks have had great success for many programs. You can ask local businesses, hospitals, state agencies to help you recruit their employees. That's a great venue to get in, and oftentimes a great kind of team building activity for people to volunteer together from an organization or a business. You can also ask local churches, schools, community-based organizations, nonprofits, local businesses to publish articles. So quite often they have employee newsletters or other things that they could share your message. And before we move on, we do have a question about what to include in a packet and how much is enough. So we talked about when we're trying to inform our audience that you should have a packet of information ready to share with your potential employees. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about a volunteer position description. And this talks about some of the key things that volunteers will want to know about your program before they get involved and what their expectations are going to be. So if we don't fully address that question here in a few minutes, please raise it again. But I think we'll get into that, and it's important to have kind of a couple staggered levels of information that you would share. So for people that you're just trying to get interested in your program, you don't want to overwhelm them with information, but you want to hit them with the key points and key messages about your program and about what they will need to do as a volunteer. Now, once you've moved past that stage and this person is interested in your program, then you're going to need to start providing more comprehensive information, application packets, information about what will need to be done for screening and that sort of thing. But you don't want to overwhelm them with information at the beginning. You simply want to get them interested in asking questions about your program. And then finally, back to our tips for recruiting mentors, mobilize some community action. So create a call to action for your community. Try and create some local media buzz. You can host special events to try and recruit volunteers and increase your community awareness. Many of you may be involved in some of those types of events this month, which is January Mentoring Month. There tends to be a lot of recruitment events that happen in January throughout the state. Celebrate milestones during the year. There's so much to celebrate in our local mentoring programs year-round, and don't be afraid to talk about all the great things that are happening. Compile some reports, testimonials, photos, media clips, that sort of thing in order to share and capitalize on that buzz you're creating. Publicize the numbers of recruits and the good stories that you have as the year progresses so people can see that the momentum is building and people are interested in your program. And then internally, you should always debrief on your successes and the needs for improvement as you plan for what you're going to do in your next year for your recruitment. Engage maybe some of the people you recruited during that year to see what drew them in and why they got involved. That's very telling to see where and how your recruitment strategy is working. So we're going to pause for a quick moment, and we want to hear from you. So why do you think people volunteer? It could be for your mentoring program or, volunteer with nonprofit organizations in general. Please go ahead and type that in the box on the right-hand side of your screen. Okay, lots of great answers coming up. So things from you are time that the potential volunteer has time in their schedule and they want to make a difference, to build their resume, which is a great way to engage young professionals or high school or college students. They want to give back to their community, something they're passionate about or interested in. They want to help, they want to give back, they want to make a difference. They enjoy working with youth, to pay it forward. Those are all great answers, really great answers. And I think, you know, as Michigan has been struggling with jobs and the economy, I think there's been a huge focus on this kind of pay it forward movement, and that we can all make a difference and everybody has needs. And I think it's a great time for volunteerism in our state. When times are tough, people really kind of pull together to make a difference. Thanks for your responses. And the next slide really addresses many of the things that you just mentioned. But, you know, how can you tap into these motives when you're recruiting? And, you know, it's important to think about, you know, can you tailor your recruitment message and build on the motivations of potential volunteers that will ultimately encourage them to make that next step and become a mentor within your program. So it's important to you know, revisit this question often and think about this question based on each target audience that you may have. So if you're targeting a corporation, if you're targeting a faith-based organization, if you're targeting men, you know, pause and think about this question often and try and tailor your recruitment message to these motives. And many of our mentoring programs ask questions that will help you with your recruitment strategy during the application process of your new mentors. So I know you have many questions you need to ask them for screening and matching purposes, but ask them why they want to volunteer. Ask them why they're interested in your program, and that hopefully will help you continue to refine your recruitment message in a way that is appealing. So now we're going to talk a little bit about this volunteer position description. The first step you should have in recruiting mentors and other volunteers within your organization should be inclusive of a clear, concise, and complete position description. Prospective volunteers want to know about the program itself, its mission, how you work towards that mission, and a description of the position they're being asked to do. They want to know the commitment level. They want to know how much time each week and month they're being asked to volunteer and the duration of that commitment. They also want to know things about the areas they'll be involved with, what qualifications and abilities are necessary to fulfill this role, and what specific responsibilities are associated with the position. So, remembering that we talked about, your focus is clearly on the recruitment of mentors, but there could be other volunteer roles within your organization that volunteers can assist with, and a position description for those roles is equally important. I know many organizations have these position descriptions for board members, but the reach could go much broader. And I think really being upfront with these written position descriptions allows you to clearly outline the roles and responsibilities that each individual has within your organization. And I think it allows your potential volunteers to really take time to think about your mission and your goals and make sure they're a good fit, and they'll feel confident in the volunteer position that they're agreeing to fulfill for you because they understand your expectations. And I think everybody will be a lot more effective based on having this clear and upfront. So we're going to do another poll. once you have a volunteer position description clearly outlined, you can start searching for volunteers. And depending on the focus of your program and the area it serves, your capacity to recruit, the pool of potential volunteers you may have will really vary. So we want to take a few minutes to discuss potential sources of mentors and other volunteers for your program. So once again, type into the box. We want to know where you find volunteers and mentors, and where have you had the most luck finding interested individuals for your program. So lots of great answers. I'm going to read through a few of them, and then we have some up on the screen as well. We have a lot of people saying schools, churches, local businesses, other community organizations. For those of you that are involved in larger organizations, and mentoring is just one component of what your organization does, you might find people internal to your organization to volunteer as a mentor. Churches, clubs, fire departments, businesses, presentations, an open house at your agency. That's a great one. College students, but I think this is a great idea too, reaching out to professors to have them help identify students that they think would be great mentors. And what a great feeling then for that potential volunteer to know that a professor recommended them. And I think quite often that's why these one-on-one asks are so powerful, because you can personalize them and say, I think you'd be a great mentor because that allows people to feel set up for success and know they already have the skills that it takes to be involved. Corporations, education associations, events on campuses, word of mouth, very powerful. So some great ideas there, and the list goes on, and there's a lot of great sharing that happens across the Mentor Michigan network too. When people come across a great idea or great organization, quite often that spreads from community to community. So thanks for sharing. So we want to look now at recruitment plans, and a successful recruitment plan should identify the following components. So the what. What is the approach, and what are the goals of the specific strategy? The how. So what are the little steps and the small tasks that make up the larger strategy? What resources, so like time, money, and skills, are needed to make this happen? The who. So you need to clearly identify who has the responsibility for each task in this plan, and make sure that they have the skills and are prepared and equipped to do this job. When? You need to have timelines. These are really important. So not only do you need to make staff time to do recruitment tasks, you also need to coordinate your efforts with things like mentoring month, external recruitment drives, the annual cycle of your program services. So for example, school-based programs do a lot of recruitment legwork during the summer. Some organizations might tie volunteer recruitment to United Way campaigns. There's a lot of great things that are happening in your community, and you should capitalize on those and incorporate those into your timelines. The where, some of this may be covered under how, but by the how portion of this recruitment plan. But recruitment often means getting out into the community or placing messages at strategic locations. So your plan will need to detail this. And then a review and revision process is critical. Your plan should set goals and benchmarks that you can track your progress against. So the review of your overall strategy at least quarterly to see if it's meeting expectations will be critical to knowing if your plan is a success. So remember that once the plan is complete, don't feel like it's set in stone, and you may find some of your approaches work better than others, and your plan should be revised accordingly. Just remember to formally schedule these reviews the way that you would want to take a look at any other important task. And I just want to reemphasize this point that some strategies are going to work better than others. Nobody has totally cracked the code on how to best recruit volunteers, and it's about a lot of trial and error. So once you get your recruitment plan in place, you must make sure you have a recruitment package to give to potential mentors that express an interest, and we're going to talk about some of these things right now. And again, remember that it's important to think about the stages of interest with volunteers when giving them this information. So you need a program overview or a fact sheet that describes the overall framework and design of your organization. A description of the mentor's roles and responsibilities, absolutely critical. An application form including a section for references, a matching form so you understand the mentor's interests, a mentor agreement so you know that they're agreeing to what it is that you have outlined in your position description, a confidentiality statement, so this varies based on organization and based on the population of the youth that you're serving, but they understand what they do with the information that they receive about those that they're working with. Mentor activities policy sheet, so they understand what they're allowed to do and what activities are allowable in this mentoring relationship. That you identify what the mentor-mentee selection eligibility criteria is for your program so that there's no surprises if you need to turn a volunteer away if they're not a great fit for a volunteer. That you detail the benefits of mentoring so they understand why this is such a great thing for them to get involved with, and any other information that you think is relevant to your program that you want the prospective mentors to know. And all of these materials are going to vary based on the focus of your program, but the important aspect of a recruitment package is having it readily available to immediately follow up with a potential volunteer so they have all of the necessary information about your program and the next steps so they can pursue your organization and ultimately sign up to be a volunteer. We didn't get into it too much today, but the importance and value in these one-to-one asks. As you are having one-on-one conversations with potential volunteers, you'll be able to engage how much information you need to be sharing along the way so you are able to not overwhelm but sell a volunteer on your program. Another valuable resource we talked briefly about at the beginning is our Men in Mentoring Toolkit. This really outlines a comprehensive recruitment plan for recruiting male volunteers. A lot of it's also very useful in recruiting female volunteers as well. Most of our programs say this is one of the most challenging issues that they have. They have a variety of boys within their program that need mentors and a challenge recruiting male volunteers. So we have learned that some traditional recruitment techniques don't seem to motivate the male audience to become volunteers. And we know this is a statewide issue, but ultimately it's an issue that needs to be solved on the local level. because at the end of the day, we have seen that men become mentors when they're personally recruited and specifically invited to join a program. So it's important that you implement some of these strategies at the local level. The Men in Mentoring Toolkit provides you with several resources to use when making this ask to potential male mentors. And in this toolkit, you'll find tips and talking points that will help you develop a complete recruitment message for a variety of male audiences. So corporations, faith-based organizations, young men, older men, the list goes on and on. And the complete toolkit is available for download at mentormichigan.org. Right on the home page, you can click on the Men in Mentoring Toolkit. And again, while it's geared towards the male audience, it's really effective as well for the female audience. So make sure you take a look at it, and also I encourage you to sign up for the webinars that we offer on this toolkit. Yeah, we had a comment on the screen that says, telling guys that there is no one better than you to do this works well. Tell them the name of the specific kid you think you would want that they would be good with, and tell them you can't think of anyone who could do it better. That's why it's so critical that you're getting to know your potential volunteers so you can find out how to best engage them. Tell them a personal, compelling story, that you're not just sharing statistics about the need for mentors, but you're making it personal to say, you know, we have a kid named Kyle in our community, and he's been waiting for a mentor, and he likes to play basketball just like you, and I can't think of anybody better who could help, you know, fill this volunteer role within our program and be a mentor to Kyle than you. It's very compelling. And there's a lot of tips like that and specific talking points within the toolkit. So if you haven't done so already, please download the Quality Program Standards for Youth Mentoring and the Program Self-Assessment Checklist. You can use this checklist to help determine the areas, once again, of potential improvement needed, and to help identify those components of quality youth mentoring that are also the strengths of your organization. So it's always good to pause every now and then and go through the checklist to see what your program is doing well and where you can improve. Also, Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, has developed the Elements of Effective Practice, and they also have a toolkit, and that's available for free download from their website, which is mentoring.org. And included in the toolkit are resources such as sample recruitment plans, sample volunteer position descriptions, and much more. So there's templates for all of this. If your program does not already have some of these in place, you do not need to create them from scratch. There's many resources available to you. If you have any challenges locating them, please let us know. You know, look at your program's policies and procedures. Think about how does your program recruit mentors and mentees? How successful have these strategies been, and what areas could you improve? And ask yourself and internally within your program, do you have a comprehensive plan, and do you have written position descriptions for volunteers? And ask yourself how you can reach a broader audience with your recruitment strategies. These are really important questions to ask. If you visit our website at mentormichigan.org, there's lots of handouts, resources, and related information available. There's a ton of resources available on the website and the other websites that we addressed, Mentor's website too. So take a look at the Training and Technical Assistance page on the Mentor Michigan website for a complete list of our webinars. We'll be offering many webinars throughout the screen. We'll go deeper into some of these issues and many, many more issues as well. So at this time, once again, are there any questions or comments? Please either raise your hand or go ahead and type them into the question box. Okay, well, thank you all for your time today. If you have any questions, please get in contact with us. You'll have our email address that will come in a follow-up to today's webinar as well. We appreciate you joining us and hope you found some of the information today useful. Thanks again, and hope to talk to you on a future webinar soon. Bye-bye.